My name is Sanjana. I born in Sri Lanka from Nuerelia, from a country from the Tamil Indian origin community, from the Liver community. I am in Canada for 24 years. Especially before introducing, I must thank Mr. Stuart Bell because in 2000 when LG asked me to give money forcefully, I refused their cut in my life. They gave me a lot right in the paper, that's how to speak. So Tissainayagam, in your speech you mentioned that the Tamil problem or media, anything should be negotiated with the president or the government. Tamils and the government is negotiate. But my feeling is how far it will be succeeded, because my feeling the Sri Lankan problem, we are talking about the Tamil problem, it's not started in 83, it started in 1948. When 1948, when Sri Lanka got its independence, the UNP government led by Tissainayagam brought a bill, Indo-Pakistani Citizenship Act. Overnight, 1 million Tamils, Indian Tamils and Indian Tamil origin, became stateless. After that, 1956 Singalamuli Act, then 58, Banda Chelva Pact. After that, Dudley Tissainayagam and Chelva Pact. And after that, they are Rajiv, so many pacts were among the Tamils and the government, but nothing fully implemented. And one pact, I think, Chandrika brought in the parliament, it was, I think so, it was a good, I will ask the question then. It was carried out by the opposition party led by Lasantha Wickrematunga and the TNA also. So how can you trust? Again, we can go for a negotiation and it will be solved. Do you think that Sinhalese people will accept to give more freedom or anything to the Tamils?
I don't think I said that that the problem could be resolved by speaking to the president. What I said was that any sort of reconciliation would have to be based on the Tamils and the Sinhalese speaking with each other, and that censorship of the media, and of course the censorship, the larger censorship, it means freedom on the freedom of expression, not being present, was one way whereby this reconciliation between the two communities could not happen. So I can only reiterate that any sort of reconciliation, if such a thing is possible, has to be based on the two communities speaking together. But that is at one level. At the other level, of course, if you are talking about a political settlement, the political settlement has to be based or can only come about if the accredited representatives of the Tamils and the government, and perhaps even the Muslims, have to get involved. The other question, the next question, is whether there is a political environment for such a thing to happen. We all know the series of meetings the Tamil National Alliance had with President Rajiv. It led nowhere. It went to the point where the president said, the leader of the TNA said, look, I can't go on talking, and the party is just wasting its time. So there are two important issues here. One is that because of censorship, not only of the media, but of freedom of expression in general, the two communities cannot speak freely and frankly about issues that concern. The second issue is that due to the political environment, and once again restrictions and various restraints and political repression, the accredited political representatives of the Tamils can't speak to the president either, which means that there has to be a reform of a larger nature of institutions and culture, political culture in this country, in Sri Lanka, change before any sort of dialogue can start. So yeah, so that's what I would like to say.
Hey, you have mentioned former member of Parliament Sri Lanka. So what I want to say is all what has been said is not new to me. But the crux of the Tamil problem, as Mr. Tissainayagam put it very well, is the occupation of the Tamil land by the Sinhalese people. And we find it put it in a different language, it has a determined, calculated move by the successive single governments, aggravated by the present government, to make us a microscopic minority or a non-entity, change the demographic features, and make us virtually wipe us out. What could be the solution? What we are facing now is cultural genocide, physical liquidation, and economic strangulation, which I have spoken to Rajapaksa and all the brothers there, but I don't see any change. They are prisoners of their prejudices. How could the media come to our rescue to bring in a change of heart in the, among the Sinhalese? It's a big, difficult question I'm asking. I don't know anybody can give a reply, but we like to make attempts. Talks, we had more than 18 to 20 times within these 2-3 years. Nothing came out. When they are prisoners of their prejudices, nothing works out. But still, if the media can find a solution, could it have an impact there, all what has been discussed could have an impact in Sri Lanka, then actually we are happy. Thanks again. Mr. Tissainayagam is alive. It's a miracle. Thank you.
I think there are two sets of issues. You see. The first thing, as I said a little while ago, is that there has to be a dialogue between the Sinhala people and the Tamil people. And there has to be dialogue between the greater representatives of the Tamils and the government. But with censorship being what it is, neither of those things, at least the first thing, where the media can play a role in putting forward the Tamil problems, the grievances, and of course the issues that took place over the last so many years is possible. So the environment, the political environment and the political culture, let's say, let's leave out culture, say the political environment has to change. But that is not happening. So, which means that what the media can do at present is to try to push the government in whatever way it can, try to sort of push the limits as much as possible to bring about an environment where there is dialogue between the two communities, which in turn might push the government to realize that the Sinhala people also know that there are problems, and those and which in turn, because they are the Sinhala base is what on which the government sort of relies on, would push it to accommodate dialogue between the two communities, and thereby finally a dialogue between the government and the Tamils accredited representatives. And in this sense, and for this, I think the international community can play a big role. That is, if the international community actually wants to play. I mean, we have heard about the international community doing this and that. Well, I am very skeptical. I found that the international community has been fairly forceful in bringing about 2 resolutions in the United Nations. But I think it can do much more. And that is a sort of pressure, I feel, that could also influence the Rajapaksa government to be more accommodating of the Tamil point of view and the Muslim point of view. And hopefully start the change that we could that could end up with a more democratic Sri Lanka where different voices are heard and so on and so on. Thanks.
I had 3 points. One is that it's a very, very difficult challenge. It is a challenge because of 3 points. One is that for those opponents of the Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission's final report, this was heralded as the panacea for post-war Sri Lanka's reconciliation challenges. The report, if you recall, has an explicit and unequivocal recommendation for right to information legislation that has never once been even peripherally considered by the government in its National Action Plan. So RTI and enabling legislation like this that gives citizens the right to ask questions of governance and government simply is not there. You have a requisite context, but may I also stress that you also have media that is unable and unwilling to do that. So if, for example, you take the unprecedented land grabs by the Sri Lankan military in the north and the east, thousands of acres, And you ask yourself the question, if you follow a media monitoring exercise as to what media has actually promoted discussion on this issue, what media has captured the expanse of the land that is being grabbed, where, whose lands they belong to, has followed the cases of the Supreme Court for what it is worth, where thousands of these Tamil landowners have gone and made representations. And there is no debate, there is no coverage. And so, on the one hand, you find an illiberal government forcing the media to comply and censor and attempts to control, but you also have a media that is also unwilling to push the boundaries for a variety of reasons, and I'm cutting it very simplistically, but I see also the problem as being the media itself, is what I'm trying to suggest. And there is also a challenge that's not adequately spoken about or problematized. Because the blame always, in a sense, and quite rightly sadly, falls on the government, but I think we also need to ask of our media more in a post-war country. We need to ask and demand more and better media that asks, flags, highlights, and gives space to those kinds of discussions, however difficult it might be. And in a sense, the failure to do so might be the story.
Thank you for that. Just really quickly, how are we for time? We have time? Okay.
My name is Arjuna and I'm a journalist who's worked in Sri Lanka and in Canada. To take up Sanjana's comment right now, why is the media not doing it? Is it because of our ownership structures? This is something that I feel very strongly about. The way media is owned, the state owns most of the media in Sri Lanka, and the private media is owned by businessmen who are obligated to the government for business. So is it the reason, Sanjay? Is this that why that with this crime need that this and talked about, that the media is just unwilling to step into this breach?
You don't answer the question, don't you? Yes, it is actually. You see, the media industry, and this is simplistic stuff, actually is based on advertising. And if you take, there was a very recent issue with a problem with contaminated milk powder in the country. There was a chemical called DCT in imported milk powder, largely ostensibly from New Zealand. Anyway, that's a separate issue. The point was that it's very interesting that the mainstream media newspapers discovered that by not, the government said you can't run advertisements on milk powder. So all milk powder advertisements were banned from all media. And they took a massive hit. And it was only then that they discovered the full extent to which the F&B, the food and beverages sector alone, constituted advertising revenue for all this media. There is not, let me be very frank and very clear enough, you know this, there is not a single media in the country which would exist without advertising. And the largest advertiser is government. So you are looking at a fundamentally flawed systemic architecture for mainstream media. If you ask of mainstream media that which the audience you guys are asking, it can't be done. It is almost like trying to push a car with the handbrake on. So to break this is, I'm not saying it's impossible, but there are ways in which you can do it, and I think that there's space for newspapers in a sense like Rava, which is always fulfilled that. There's alternative spaces in the Sinhala, in the Tamil online spaces. There's something called Kalapatra. There's alternative printed stuff coming about, and there are discussions happening. It's also a generational thing. There's something called memes happening. If you don't know what a meme is, you're not engaging with political dissent in a very real form that's happening in Sri Lanka. A meme, simply put, is like a cartoon, right? It exists online, it's a cultural construct. And what you find is that in the creation of these cartoons that are circulated on online social media and on email as well, nobody is sacrosanct. So I made the point yesterday that at a different gathering that since this government has come to power, there has not been a single cartoon of Gotabaya Rajapaksa, not a single cartoon in any media. But if you take the way in which memes are being created, everybody from cricketers to the president to Gotabaya to every single person, institution is taken to task. So there are new avenues, there's a new blossoming of critical dissent as well that might, in the future grow into something larger and greater and stronger and better and more diverse and wider and deeper. But right now, if you ignore that, I think you're also ignoring pockets of dissent in the country. But the point is very much the case that the mainstream media itself is rotten at the core. And if you cannot say that, and if you cannot explore that, then I think just blaming the government for Sri Lanka's failure of the freedom of expression, particularly post-war, is, I'd say, it's unfair by all of us.